Hello and welcome at Book Lovers Companion. My name is Edith and right next to me is my lovely co-host, the Chattering Teacup.
Hello.
And here with us, dear listeners, not one guest, but two guests. The author of the book Skin Deep, Antonia Lassa. Hello, Antonia, and welcome at Book Lovers Companion.
Hello, I'm very happy to be with you today and very grateful for your invitation.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And our second guest, returning guest, is the translator of the book Skin Deep, Jacky Collins. Hello, Jacky, and welcome back.
Hi, lovely to be back with you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for making it possible. Thank you for being here, both of you. And let's dive right in, shall we? Teacup, you have our first question. You are very much into the intricacies of translation. So your first question would be...
The thing is, as a translation, every language has a type of flair, and with some expressions, you instantly know what is meant by it in that language. So how difficult is it to transfer that to another language? And would the book be somehow a different taste or flair if it would be written in another language?
I think you better start, Jacky, because you are the translator in this case.
Okay, I think before going anywhere with your question, I'd like to talk, if I can, about the challenge I found in trying to capture the beautiful lyrical way that Antonia writes in an English that would sound as equally beautiful and flow in the same way. And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed, that Spanish has a way of describing things that it almost is a level of ecstasy, or it's Antonia's way of working with adjectives, that the layer on layer, and in a way rather like an aspect of the book, but that Antonia's way of writing has a melodic quality to it as well. And I was afraid that English, whilst it is a very rich language with the notion of vocabulary, and our verbs just, can do amazing things. But I was really frightened. And I confess, I don't think I would really advise readers, if they can read it in the original, because I've tried to do justice to Antonia's beautiful way of writing. But I'm not sure I totally was able. I had to phrase it in a way that it made sense in English, to not sound like it was trying to be over pompous. That in the original language, it's beautiful.
Well, I think in English is very beautiful too. Spanish and English are obviously two different languages, but I think they share more than we usually think about it. Share music, or more than music, this capacity, this flexibility. And I think English is a very flexible language, and Spanish too. Spanish sounds stronger and harder, but it's a very flexible language. So when I read Skin Deep in English, I feel this quality of being alive. Sometimes when you read a translation, it's a sort of corpse. Well, you understand it, but it's not alive. And in this case, it's totally alive. So I think the translation is very good in rendering this music and this life, the breathing of the sentence, and obviously the vocabulary too. So I'm very, very happy with the translation. It's quite how to say, sort of a particular emotion to listen to the voices of the characters, so lively. So thank you very much, Jacky, for this this translation.
It's a pleasure.
And it was a pleasure to read it.
Yeah.
And before we started the recording and before you came on, Jacky, we spoke a little bit and said it wasn't, for us as readers, it was an unexpected and unusual novel.
What a little bit before came to mind for me was don't judge a book by its cover. Because it's advertised as a crime novel,
Yeah.
but it's an untypical crime novel. And also the characters. At the first look, you'd think them maybe differently, or you would have some prejudices.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you get to know them, they're completely different. They surprise you, as the book does.
And I would say that is if the words and the way things were expressed is the beauty of this text, then I would say the story that Antonia has created is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because what you said, how you reacted, is exactly that. To challenge, surprise, and please crime fiction and mystery readers, because in my experience, they, globally, they are the kind of reader, I would use the word, vociferous. Bring me the next book. Who's the next author? What can I read now? Because I've got all this amazing back catalogue, and then who's out there? And then along comes this book that says, okay, you've read so much. How about this? And I think, the genre allows itself to change and flex and question all the traits and tropes that we are very comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then says, can you do it like this? Can you enjoy the story like this? Go on, take this on board, see where you go.
Yeah, Antonia, what can you tell us as the author about your story? What can you share with our readers without, of course, or listeners, without giving too much away, of course?
Well, for me, I think the first thing I want to say that for me, Skin Deep and the fact of creating this pen name, Antonia, was more than writing a book, or Skin Deep is more than a book. It's a sort of adventure. So this idea of breaking borders or breaking frontiers and was for me very, very important. So when you say that this is an unusual novel, it's because for me too is an unusual as a writer. Is totally new. So I wanted to try a writing without habit, without memory, in a sense, something new, and also breaking the borders or breaking the limits, also of the genre, because as Jacky says, sometimes certain genres are sort of prisons. A label is a prison for a book because it's crime, so you have to do this, and this, and it's poetry, so the same thing. So I want to write books without labels or without limits. So in this case, I think this spirit of freedom makes the idea, but it's also, I translate this freedom or this, how to say, put on characters less labels and more attention. So this idea of originality of every person, of every character. So I didn't want to create stereotypes, but just people who are themselves, and all of us are different. We have things in common, but also many differences. And I wanted to put my attention on these differences.
Is it also about concepts or ideas we have not only about ourselves, but about others? because this gets constantly questioned in your book as well. It's not just a mystery that is solved, but also constantly questioning, like I said, the concept or the idea or the prejudices we have about others, of course, and maybe a little bit also about ourselves.
Yes, I think I would say that the custom of seeing things in a certain way prevents us of seeing really. So I think this, for me, is basic, this idea of attention. When you pay attention, you are able to capture the nuances, the small things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this case, I wanted my characters also to be in movement, because when they start the novel, they are, well, in a way, and then they change, they develop certain qualities, they forget others. And so this idea of movement for me is the idea of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, one of the, I think, worst thing that makes us very unhappy is the prejudice, is discrimination, etc. And many times we put on people labels that prevent us to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a book about listening to people, looking to people very carefully, and also asking intimate questions on what kind of person I am, what kind of attitude
Mm-hmm.
I have others. And I would say that this novel is a constant question mark. It's
Mm-hmm.
a constant interrogation
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
the characters, for the writing, for the genre, for the cities, for all these pre-established meanings of things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have to admit though that your inspector, although he has preconceived ideas about his, how shall we put him, the lawyer he comes into contact with, he has a toothache. Did you have a toothache when you wrote the book? No. Just wondering.
No, but can I tell you that it's very interesting, because when we began working on the book, my wife did have the same procedure and the same problem. So it's really good. I kept saying, "Can you describe how you feel?" because then I can use it in making sure that, yeah. So but thankfully, unlike at the beginning of the book, where sadly the inspector and his beloved are not in a good place, we were fine despite the toothache.
Yeah, but
Glad to hear.
I think this is interesting because for me, the character of Albert Larten is for me it's a discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want him to belong to a category or to two categories or three at the same time. No, for me it was a discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to imagine or to create him on the margins, on the sort of backs, out of the how to say, out of de los caminos trillados, Jacky. ¿Cómo dirías eso?
Yeah, those I think those typical spaces and those typical professions
usual
that we associate. Yeah. Outside those typical paths or those typical spaces where we find characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially,
and so for me, he was a discovery, and I wanted to little by little to put sort of nuances or details little by little to create sort of movable character, or movable figure also. So it's for me the major concern was to avoid categories, to avoid labels, to avoid, even for me, to avoid habits of thinking. I try to be a totally new author. So because I know more or less how Luisa Echenique thinks, but I know very little of how Antonia Lassa thinks. So I know her. Just I don't know her very much. So it's also for me trying to imagine how Antonia conceive her characters too. So it's a sort of hesitation. How to say? Sort of happy hesitation. It's an energy of the energy of doubting. I don't know if I'm expressing it well,
But it
it's
also
always, it's the creative, the creativeness of doubt.
but it also gave you freedom because there were no misconceptions. And
Yeah.
as Larten quite early found out that he was a so-called other, it also gave him the freedom to do what he wants and how he wants to be. And I have to say, I like his office.
Yeah, and also because we live in a world where very young people, teenagers or even children, who find that they are different, so they suffer a lot because the context or the milieu where they live don't help them enough to. I wanted also Larten this discovery of being a other in when he was a child had something of how to say of exciting or happy or yeah, and also the idea of even if you are other, you can be happy and follow a sort of happy path if you have teachers or masters. This is another, I think, strong idea. The fact of being surrounded by people who help you.
Yeah. And I really, in reading the book for the first time, I was really encouraged to see those connections that are formed between people. As the book goes on, the understanding between characters and the support that is provided. And I actually felt almost like a call to action, of saying, okay, so whilst I think I would place myself as other in life, although sometimes I can be very, very traditional in things, but that sense of, as an older person, being there for my students who might feel other and who don't have someone to talk to about these things, and being willing to do that. I think, the book works to solve a crime, but I think it also serves as, we've spoken about that idea of challenging our prejudices, but I also think it calls us to, to think, if we were a character in this story, who would we be, and how would we react to be that better person? I think.
Yeah, you said.
I felt it that way. I don't know if Luisa wrote it that way, Antonia, but yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it's a crime book, so there is a crime. But I wanted also to underline other crimes. I mean, bloodless crimes. And prejudice is prejudice is the awful criminal, a murderer. So in this book, we'll find the that kind of other crimes too, without blood, but that caused a lot of pain and suffering. But two things: the fact of being other, the discovery of being other was for Albert Larten through literature, and also for me, he was a child reading a novel by Balzac, Le Père Goriot. So, well, for me, it was also important to present literature as the space, the territory of liberty, and with this capacity of hosting otherness. So it was important, but we don't have to forget that probably the central point of the novel is age and desire, and that's for me was probably the most powerful engine, not only for the plot, because it's the plot, but also I would say for the philosophy of the book. This idea that ageism is also a cruel criminal.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, because it gives the cover gives a little bit of a hint what might be coming for the reader. And would you say that also age, or if you get older, you also become an other?
I think that how to say? I think that I want Antonia Lassa's novels and as Luisa Echenique's novels are quite political in the sense of what I call politics of intimacy, not public debate, etc. But I think this political. And in the book, obviously, it's a crime book, so you need a crime and you need a plot, and this development of the plot, etc., etc. So in this case, we have sex, we have money, and we have things capable of able to push the plot.
Yeah.
But I think it's a novel also about probably our societies have made some progress in fighting some kinds of discrimination, racism, sexism, etc. We have much more to do and better, but we are just improving in these areas. But I think probably the cruelest discrimination is still age. And that's seen recently with the pandemics. So, I mean, the ageism is probably one of the most raw form of, raw without any cooking, raw form of discrimination. And so, in this case, in this novel, we have the different levels of becoming older. And I don't think it depends only on age, but on the quality or the strength of desire or maturity, etc. So Emile Garcia, one of the main characters, is very young, but he has an adultness in him, maturity.
An old soul.
Well, or at least, I don't know old, but at least quite mature soul. But other characters are old in age, but very young inside. So once again, this idea of breaking labels and breaking limits.
I think it's also has this taboo of older women and desire, because it's much more common to hear about older men and desire. That's fine, but with women, it's more or less unheard of.
Yeah. Because, I wanted I wanted to present, how to say, we is the idea of presenting women as victims.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to present. Obviously, there is a victim because there is a murder, but I also wanted to present powerful women, and powerful because they are wealthy, in some cases extremely wealthy, and very well connected in society, in high society, I would say. But also because they have this strength in them, the strength of and breaking this. How to say? I wanted them to be leaders of their own design,
But also, as I mentioned,
not the object of the design of others, not only, but being the subject of their own desires. And when they are the object of the desire of others, is a total transgression because we are not used to this kind of desire for elder people or for elder women.
but also, as I mentioned, they have a lot of money. This also gives them freedom,
Yeah.
and also leads the inspector to make assumptions about
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah. Of course, because, age, money, and sex, are surrounded by sort of army of stereotypes. So, because a young man is related to wealthy old women, well, it has a name, and the idea of paying for sex or paying for attention or whatever. So I had all this castle of cards, of prejudice to blow blow out. So I wanted to create, the building of the most classic stereotype to destroy it.
But I think as well, one of the ways that you so successfully achieved that is because it's premised on those typical aspects of crime fiction. Of the detective, so not Larton, but the detective, the authority, the establishment, and that's very, very typical. The phrases that are used, how he goes about things, almost you're left thinking, oh really, and so on top of, you almost lull us into a very false sense of security when the novel opens, and it's really a thinking of, okay, this will be a great crime novel, and we'll work out, who's killing these women and what this is about. And as the book unfolds, to me, it's like the layers of skin, and we're just left thinking, oh wait, no, and we're too far in to turn around. You draw us, Antonia, you draw us in, and then you send us on a journey. I don't think if anybody is honest who reads the novel comes out the other side the same person in some way or another.
Well, I think you have saying something very important, because how to say, the characters, almost all of them, even the police inspector, are sort of marginals because they don't belong to the correct level of establishment, if you want. Especially the women, these old women, very wealthy, and so in a way they are anomalous. And I don't know if the term exists in English. They are marginals, but at the same time, and also for me was very, very important, they are very powerful, not only for money, because they belong to the highest levels of society, administration, etc. So, I mean, they cannot be just victims or just marginalized. Sort of balance, strange balance between fragility and power.
Yeah.
You can't.
Say is everything is not false, but I would say insufficient.
But
So you need more. You need the other part. So certain levels of the other part. So I think this balance, the novel is the main plot. I would say the investigation, etc. But it's also all the power relationships and this sometimes difficult balance between fragility and strength, between marginality and power, between age and youth, etc. So all the time we are going to different levels.
But your victims, the elderly women, they belong to a class that can't be ignored. You can't just push them or their death under the rug. They have to do something. They can't ignore it compared to other people. Other people can be ignored. They can't. Like you said, they are powerful, they have money, they belong to the establishment.
And they were well connected.
Indeed, they were well connected.
Yeah, but in this case, I wanted to be more disturbing because, as you said, I mean, if you are, the system or the establishment can crush you. These women are uncrushable.
Yeah.
I say, put it this way. So they are uncrushable.
Yeah.
But I think I wanted also to create inside of the world of privilege, of power, etc., sort of disturbance. So they create in their worlds a disturbance. They are the others of the worlds. So in a way, they have this capacity of make the establishment weaker. Weaker from inside, because neither the judges nor the policemen, nobody can say openly what is happening there. These women are too powerful. So it's a way of, it's a sort of victory of otherness applied to this privileged world.
I mean, your investigator, your lawyer, in a way, he does belong to this world of privilege. I mean, he's not just a run-of-the-mill investigator. I mean, when you think of a private eye, you sometimes think of the old trench coat and the hat and someone who is constantly on the verge of being too drunk to string two sentences together. But he's not.
He's also a lawyer.
He's a lawyer. Somehow he does belong to the establishment. On the other hand, he's other, like you said. So he's constantly somewhere in between, and he's constantly challenging and questioning this establishment and confronting them constantly.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, because I mean it put me in the beginning. I mean, from the departure line of the project of Antonia Lassa. So because in this case, this detective is very important. I wanted, because I imagine other novels, and also I imagine the atmosphere and what I want to write about. So I want to have the possibility of a very wide range of milieus.
Mhm.
So I wanted a cultivated person because of being able to dialogue with art, with literature, with etc. And also being able to be in touch with the hardest realities. So, a person who knows the world.
Mhm.
And so I wanted someone, how to say, that belonged to more than one milieu.
Mhm.
So in this case, I wouldn't say that he belongs to this privileged world. I would say he's a person with a big toolbox.
Mhm.
So that's what I need, and that's what I want for my future project. Because also, for example, culture. I mean, art and culture. I want art and culture to be always present. I mean, just in a few lines or a few moments. But in this book is in the case of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Bordeaux, but in other books also, because I mean, defending culture and certain idea of culture has become very political too for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially introduce sort of quality of aesthetical quality in crime seems interesting for me. So I need Latin to be able to, how to say it, to be a reader of different languages.
Jacky, do you?
Sorry. Can I just want to say as well,
Yeah.
what I love about him? He has exquisite taste, and his and his knowledge of wine.
Yeah.
I think to me he would be the kind of person that if I were able to do any kind of cultural tourism, I would want Larton to take me on that voyage. And then when we'd looked at places, discussed, considered, then we could retire for a wonderful supper. And he would choose, or they would choose, the most wonderful wine. Yeah. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes, and he hopefully and hopefully he won't serve you your neighbor's liver. No, sorry, just I'm thinking. Sorry, but I'm thinking of another cultured character. Yeah. Sorry for that. Jacky, do you think, from your perspective as someone who's experienced in reading a lot of crime fiction, do you think we need more characters like him in crime fiction?
Yeah, I do, and I think the genre is a place where that can happen. If you think at the moment, it is wonderful to see the increase in neurodiverse characters. To me, it's a space where, as Antonia said, otherness isn't a problem. There are other things out there that are the problem. I mean, if I can, just a little bit of past history. I got to know Antonia Luisa a number of years ago because of an author in the north of Spain who, for me, has written one of the best lesbian detectives on the Iberian Peninsula, fictional character. And that sense of the genre allows for that. Back in the past, it allowed lesbian characters to fight evil and be seen to be, good characters within society because they were trying to deal with the not so pleasant side of society. Now we've moved on, and I think the idea of bringing together characters that represent other, to challenge the heteronormativity, the hegemony of society, to say that, great stories can be told with characters that are different, whatever that difference be.
Yeah, and also I think it's important that not to forget. Well, I tried not to forget that a crime book or a crime novel must be attractive. I mean, so putting, for example, wine, the world of wine, which is so sensual and well, attractive and interesting, and also has its own vocabulary, which is for a writer very important. It is for me another challenge, because you taste the wine with your five senses, and I think a crime fiction. In crime fiction, five senses are involved because there is a great physicity, the physical aspects of the body, blood, etc., smell or whatever. So I wanted, in a sense, to incorporate these five senses in a second level too, more aesthetic or more attractive or less aggressive than just blood or whatever, the practical five senses of the criminal investigation. So I wanted something more softer and at the same time profound and well, attractive. I always remember something that the Spanish poet Federico García Lorca said, that the poet should be the master of the five senses and create bridges between them, among them. So I wanted, with incorporating the five senses of wine, and in my novel, I want to create bridges between the different levels of perception of crime. So, for example, at a certain point of the novel, Larten says that he's a taster of streets. So the investigation in the street is like tasting wine. So he applies this idea of the five senses. So because I wanted my novel and to be different, but to be how to say, attractive for the readers too, incorporating different elements of this attraction, for this attraction.
Sensual experience in more than one way. Yeah, go on, Jacky.
Can I say as well, though, because I think it's important to say, for anybody who's not managed to to read the book yet, that honestly, Antonia, I love this notion of the sensuality and the senses and that, but the crimes in this novel are really grim. We've talked beautifully about things, but oh my God, what is done to human bodies in this novel is not pleasant and not beautiful and not refined, not at all.
But the somehow left
it's
hanging.
Quite dark. I accept it. It's quite sophisticated and dark. I mean,
We were left hanging in the book what really happens. Because you think about different crimes until you find out what actually was the crime.
Yeah. Which we do not want to give away, of course. That's why she's putting it so.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before, that there is a main there is a crime. I mean, the first one, the engine for the plot. But there are other crimes. I mean, literal crimes, and also I wanted to to put on the table another aspect concerning the body of women is prostitution. And for me, well, I'm an abolitionist, and well, I think it's the shame of societies to tolerate this. So I wanted also to propose, on one hand, these powerful women in control, I would say, of their own desire, and on the other hand, the prostitutes that are, objects and use like, well, this shame of prostitutions. So there is more than one crime, but visible crimes, but also these evident crimes in our streets, in the clubs, in our cities, that they are evident, but even being so evident, they are invisible. And I wanted the visibility of these two.
And also age plays a role with prostitutes too.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I chose La Rue Saint-Denis, because it's an area in Paris when you see prostitutes in the streets of a certain age, because, well, it's not common. Ageism works also for prostitution. So, but in this case, because of the plot of the story, I needed prostitutes of a certain age.
Yeah. And Antonia and also Jacky, both of you, question goes for both of you. What would be your advice for writers, for translators? What is the advice of the author? What is the advice of the translator for aspiring authors and aspiring translators of fiction?
Well, to translators, I would say be respectful, but feel free. So I think this, when you are respectful, when you listen carefully to the text, you are allowed to feel free to do and to make your own interpretation, and to have the courage to dare things. And I think this is once again the balance, the good balance, to be respectful and to be, how to say, respect and courage, or respect and respect and courage, to respect and to dare.
Jacky?
Oh, I appreciate what has been said. I think as the person on the other side, I think because I know there were a number of instances where, author and translator, we had some good exchanges about, okay, what is it that is being talked about? I mean, from aspects with certain crazy details, boats, and the whole thing of a motorhome. Is it a motorhome? Is it a caravan? Is it, what is this? Or how, how would we call this vehicle in one culture? What would they call it in another? So again, I think for me, it's being able to have, and I think, what was the idea of courage, being able to explore and a dialogue, or even bring in somebody else. I mean, so Quentin, who is a man of the sea, and I was able to say to him, okay, how do you talk about this in English? Because I don't sail. I have no experience of being in a boat, and whilst I know what the author is wanting to convey, I have a better idea in Spanish of what it means than I can say the words in English. So I think, the courage of being able to say, I don't I don't really get this, and I could use all the technology available, but I want to reach out to somebody with a specialist knowledge in an area. I mean, the whole thing of wine tasting. I love wine, and I honour the whole notion of spending time, not just drink. You know, sadly, you know, in the UK we have a reputation of drink. You know, it's like, just drink as opposed to savor, appreciate. You know, let it be part of you. So I think, yeah, I'll take what was said about respect and courage. So respect what the author is wanting to convey, and courage to find a way to say it that doesn't distort that message, but tries to stay as true as possible without sounding unrealistic.
Yeah, I think that you're being natural. So when I write in Spanish, it's naturally Spanish. So when I read it in English, I want this natural aspect or natural feeling to be there.
But Jacky, I must say, as someone from a seafaring nation, I'm shocked.
Can we say, if we come back to the whole notion of class, because again, I think that's a very interesting aspect also in the novel, you know, the whole thing of class that's brought in. And whilst I think, whilst I'm from a seafaring nation, I'm also from a nation where class is just, we are bound by it. And to sail, unless it's in the galley, if you don't have the money, you don't sail. So, yeah.
But you can row.
But there is another aspect. You can sail and without knowing the words, because it's different to. It probably is easier to sail than to write about sailing, which is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So I know people, even fishermen, etc., who know everything. I mean, absolutely everything about boating, fishing, the sea, but probably are not able to put to create a text on that.
Yeah.
So I think that the difficulty is also to write about that and to translate in a very natural vocabulary of this experience.
Because you might have the picture, but not the words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the practice, I mean, the skill, but not the words.
And I think music as well. The music is also a considerable part of this text, and of course, the person who is enveloping themselves in music can write music. Has great knowledge of the technical side of music, but there are people who play instruments who do not know what notes they're forming or the rhythm or the tempo, but they create, the most beautiful sound. And I'm always intrigued by this kind of skill and ability, the difference between or cooking, people who just throw ingredients together and the feast that ensues is amazing. And those of us who diligently follow a recipe book and it's, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's edible.
Yeah, it's also an art form.
And very sensual.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the senses are involved. Yeah, absolutely. With cooking. And
with music.
With music, absolutely. And may I ask, ladies, about your plans? What can we next from both of you?
Well, my first appointment is with the publication of Skin Deep in Spanish. The book will be launched early in October. And, I'm writing another novel, but under Misa Technique, not not for the moment Antonia Lassa. I'm writing Antonia Lassa's second novel, but slowly. And I think this is becoming very interesting for me to lead a sort of double life, and a writer's double life. So it's quite exciting.
And for me, it's getting to the point of it's time to think about the planning of Newcastle Noir 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenges that will bring, and all the authors that I wish I could invite, and the fact that there's only so much time. So I need some magic to be able to make that happen. But I always believe I have almost like an evangelical attitude towards it, or faith-based, that or Steven Spielberg, if you build it, they will come. But so it will happen, and all will be well. I just have a challenge as well around when I can hold it, because the library aren't wanting to open on a Sunday because of the cost. So I'm having to shape it differently in the week. But hey, creativity, it'll be fine.
When will it happen? In probably December?
December. I am hoping it will be the 6th of December to the 9th, which will be a Wednesday to the Saturday. Looking at the evenings during the week, and then a full day on the Saturday. And if fate and destiny will allow, I am hoping that the author present with us will be able to be there. But I know it depends on a lot of commitments and things like that. Yeah. So, but I think for Corylus, for the publisher, I would like for that to happen. So we shall see. We shall trust it to the universe.
Keep our fingers crossed. So, ladies, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know? Anything else you would like to share?
Yes. Something that for me it's very important, and probably and especially for Jacky too, for you, both of you, that imagine that Antonia Lassa is a French author. I write a book. I'm a Spanish author, so I write a book in Spanish, and the first publishing is in English. And I call this an European gesture. And this is also, for me, very important. That it's also an expression. We talk a lot about what European means and the disasters of Brexit. For me, the disaster. And so I wanted to express physically, in a sense, the fact of being European and feeling at home in the UK, in Austria, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain. And so Antonia Lassa's project means also this European gesture.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And so for me to have been involved in that, someone for whom the notion of being European and being a part of Europe for all that means, and the time and the space that I live in, to be able to be involved in this project has allowed my identity to flourish in a way that I would like it to. So, Antonia and Luisa, thank you from the bottom of my European loving heart to have been able to do this.
Yes, and from our end, as Austrians, again, thank you for writing this book.
And translating
it.
And translating it.
For reading and for inviting me, and Jacky for her friendship and her beautiful translation.
It was a pleasure having you on, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. You did enjoy this episode as much as we did? Then hit subscribe and don't miss the next episode. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you like to support us and buy us a coffee, you can do so via Buy Me a Coffee and other platforms. You can find all the necessary links in the description. Until next time.